you playing?
Hello, and welcome to a brand new podcast here. What the bleep are you playing? I am your host, Shawn, an expert at making all games look bad. Here today with me is Thomas, a man born with controllers for hands, and also joining us is Mason, who does not understand the ones and zeros. Today we're going to talk about Marvel Nemesis, Rise of the Imperfects.
And if you're anything like Shawn and I, who had no idea what this game was, you probably asked the same question: what in the world is this?
And if you're like me, who grew up with it, you're like, oh shit, that one.
So this is an interesting game. We're kind of doing this little thing where we're choosing a game. Each of us choose a game, and the rest of us play it, and then we talk about it. And Thomas chose this game, and I knew a little bit about it going in. Like, I knew it existed. I'd seen trailers, and maybe at like a party, you know, where we've had a bunch of games, I might have played it because it does feel very similar. But I had no experience with it. Mason here had absolutely no experience with it. So you came into this as the expert of this game. So I don't know how that makes you feel.
I was going to say, is that a label you want to wear?
Look, it's not a label I wear proudly, but it's a label I have, goddammit.
So let's get a little bit of background here on Marvel Nemesis, Rise of the Imperfects. So Marvel hadn't really gotten into like the big games. Like DC was kind of staying back. They had a few little things like that, but Marvel kind of like wanted this to be their like launching of a new franchise, and they partnered with EA. You know, a huge company at the time, you know, and still is, you know, a huge company.
And this was like prime EA. This was like back when they were releasing like Def Jam, all the EA sports games, whatever the fuck that snowboard, SSX.
Yeah.
I think at this point they also had the James Bond license.
I think they did at this point.
They did have the James Bond license.
At this point, EA is like, this is before the EA was a naughty thing to think about, you know. Yeah.
This was before EA was like the worst word you could say
for a game.
It was before EA was voted like worst company 2 years in a row. Bear in mind, not just worst video game company, worst company.
I mean, Blizzard's got some money coming from
I was going to say Blizzard Activision. Oh, we're coming for that, baby.
They were like, hold my allegations.
So I believe it's a Canadian company. I don't have the actual on it, but the company that actually ended up developing it was Nihilistus Software.
Gesundheit.
Yeah, it's quite a name. And you know, you go through their game library, and they got nothing really. Like, their best reviewed game is Vampire the Masquerade Redemption. And that was on the PC and Apple.
I was going to say, that was on the PC for, I think that was 2000. Because I believe that was the first Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, and they used that game to get this game. This was their second game. They would go on to later make the Conan the Barbarian game, a game called Zombie Apocalypse, PlayStation Move Heroes, and then their final games were the Vita versions of Resistance Burning Skies and Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified. So we're talking about a studio that does not have a lot going for it as well, on top of EA. So
I'm just curious to know what were they thinking going to that studio?
I think they were probably thinking, we have a young and upcoming studio that, you know, maybe has something good for it, and we want to do this. We want to do this huge tie-in universe. Well, so because they made this universe and then made a comic series that ran for, was it six issues? The problem is the comics actually contradict the game in multiple points.
It's so fucking funny, dude. Like, it's because there was no communication
at all.
The communication was Marvel went up to the writers and was like, "Hey, write tie-ins for this game. What's it about? This. Okay, we'll write tie-ins for it." And then back at EA, they were like, "Hey, we have all these backstories. Should we send them to Marvel? Let them guess." Like, that was what it was.
So this game is coming out in there, and the other thing on it is, like, in the Marvel universe, they still acknowledge that the Imperfects and the characters that were created by this studio do exist in the universe, but they've never touched them again. That's the only time they've ever appeared.
Marvel's weird with their like licensed stuff, because you know what else is technically still canon in Marvel? Transformers. Godzilla,
True.
Rom the Robo Knight, like all this tie-in shit is still technically canon to the universe. I think Transformers, especially, is still like having effects to this day.
And then, but here's the thing though, I don't really blame them because these new characters, they're such nothing. Like there's
They're very lame.
They're very bland.
what is it like? Johnny Ohm is the only one I can think of because that's the one I was just playing as.
Yeah, there's Johnny Ohm. There's the Wink, which might be the worst name for a teleporting character ever.
Try not
There's-
to.
I get what they're trying to say, like they're trying to do with that character, like the name on it, but it just like you blink, you'll miss it, that sort of thing. But woof, it's just like.
And then what's the Lex Luthor ripoff? What's his name?
Miles Van Orm, is that
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is?
Yeah, like
It's a bunch
Like
of
who's
bad
literally
characters.
just Lex Luthor.
And
my favorite thing, I genuinely forget. Fault Zone. Fault Zone's her name.
Yeah.
Sean called her Thunder Thighs.
Yes.
That's legit just what I call her now. Because
I
literally
had
her
nicknames for them all.
Because
Yeah.
literally her superpower is she dances like a ballerina and causes earthquakes.
why isn't that a character?
Yeah. So this game, it was not received well. As we're talking here, it was not received well. I mean, the console versions. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is the worst game ever. They averaged about 58 for Metacritic, with the GameCube being the lowest one at 54, the PlayStation 2 and Xbox at 58. But they also made handheld versions, and I know that the studio here did not make the DS version. That was a different studio.
No, because they did the PSP version.
But they did the
'cause
PSP version,
version's
which
basically-
again also had a lower score down there. But the where this game gets the notoriousness is how bad the DS version was.
the DS version is apparently like legendary.
And I mean, it's not uncommon that the DS ports were bad in that era. A lot of times they were just thrown together and things like that. It's just very funny that this poorly reviewed game overall had a version that was just so much worse. And if the game had been more critically reviewed, well and received on the consoles, it probably is just kind of forgot. Oh, there was a bad port of it. But no, it's just like we've taken a bad game and somehow made it worse.
Which is weird because usually when a bad game is ported to the DS, I mean, sometimes yes, it's fucking terrible, but there are other times where it's actually like pretty good. Like I forget what the hell it was.
But I mean, it doesn't really happen that often.
No.
That was
not that often.
and that wasn't really a problem. That was like just the DS. That was a problem across the DS and the 3DS because I remember I used to have the Amazing Spider-Man for the 3DS.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
the original, the actual console version, it's not awful, but it's not great either. It just kind of exists. The 3DS game is horrible.
To sum up a lot of the
Horrible.
DS ports that came from systems, they created a DS port of Assassin's Creed. And it is as bad as you can think of it right now.
How would they even...
It's like a 2D side-scrolling platformer.
Okay, so it's like Arkham Blackgate, but
Yeah.
with Assassin's Creed.
Because they actually went back and did that style of Assassin's Creed again. Because they did Assassin's Creed Chronicles a lot later. I played China. I mean, I played a little bit of India, but yeah.
Back onto this, the Marvel game. It clearly they did not have a good plan, and as we get into the plot here, you can see, woof, they everything from the development, everything on it. But before we get to the plot, there, the one little point there is like after this game, Marvel dissolved the partnership with EA. It was a 2-year partnership, and they didn't do anything more with it, and they focused all their money in terms of it onto Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah, because that was, excuse me, that was Raven Software that did that, because they did the X-Men Legends games. Because before Marvel Nemesis, the two big Marvel games were X-Men Legends and like arcade games, like Marvel vs. Capcom, X-Men the arcade games, stuff like that.
It just there was a lot of movie tie-in games, but that existed. But yeah, just straight up Marvel Comics type games. It was arcade type style games, and the X-Men games, and that's a lot what you had for the most part.
Yeah, even even Spider-Man, like he had a couple beat 'em ups for the SNES, but not
And
a lot. And this is Spider-Man, like
Yeah.
the biggest Marvel.
I mean, he has beat 'em ups. There's the 164 game. There was a couple Game Boy
That's
games.
right,
too.
that's
so
right, he did
Spider-Man
have
had a
PlayStation
few, but
games. I
also,
forgot about that.
you know, that's not also necessarily just saying trying to do a huge Marvel Comics game. The Ultimate Alliance later would be what they really ended up like. In
Yeah,
a lot of ways, this is the proto idea that Injustice would later kind of adapt and do better.
And we were also still a couple of years off from the Raimi Spider-Man tie-in game, which
I mean, Spider-Man, they all would have been out by now.
They-
This is
oh,
over
really?
2005, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was
So
gonna say because
1 and 2 would have come.
we were a couple years off from Spider-Man 3, the greatest of all of them. But yeah, this was keep in mind this was after Spider-Man 2, so this was after arguably the highest high of Marvel games for a while. Because everyone fucking loved Spider-Man 2, and it's like Spider-Man's gonna be in this game, and jumping ahead a bit, he's gonna look like Raimi's Spider-Man. Oh boy, let's buy it. Oh God, why?
So people in there are wondering, well, what is Rise of the Imperfects? What is the story here? So I'm gonna do my best to read you here a summation of the plot from Wikipedia, because I think of all the things I looked up for the plot, just trying to summarize it, this one does it best because it just is like so basic, and this game is kind of basic.
Is it one of those really short Wikipedia
It's fairly
articles?
short, yeah.
I can see on his notes it's like 3 paragraphs.
As heroes battle invading aliens, a daredevil in distress calls Elektra for help. She finds him on the Daily
Oh,
Bugle
this is
building,
Daredevil the superhero. Okay.
where he fights her.
Just evil Knievel. Holy shit, Elektra!
She defeats him and removes an alien device from the back of his neck. This releases him from the control of one Niles Van Rokel,
Niles Van Rokel.
who lets his imperfects fight into the city to fight heroes. The heroes also find more alien devices and fight any infected to remove those devices. Meanwhile, a girl named Maya trains to fulfill Rokel's goals to create the best and most deadly warrior. She begins by destroying different alien devices. As training continues, she takes on the name Paragon, fighting the same aliens the heroes are. She fights her way out of the secret headquarters of the Imperfects and into the city, where Magneto finds her, so that Paragon will serve as his minion. He uses an alien device to control her. Paragon eventually breaks free of the device's control and defeats Magneto. She realizes that she is not evil and plans to stop Rokel. Rokel reveals that he is an alien, is responsible for, and will spread the invasion. Maya attacks Rokel and kills him by taking away his life force. She stops the invasion, and she and the other Imperfects join together to share the Earth with the heroes.
Yeah, notice the one thing missing from this Marvel Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects plot summation? Fucking Marvel.
And that is, as we get into kind of the gameplay and what we kind of feel and experience of playing this game, that is the kind of the feeling of it is there is not a lot of Marvel in my Marvel game.
That's what that's what it feels like. It feels like they had written an entirely different game and then got the Marvel license and then made it a Marvel game.
That might have genuinely been the case.
I'm pretty sure, though, by the way they're getting at, that they knew they were getting it because they created the Imperfects, I believe, post after getting the license, like the Imperfects, all of it. But
That's-
it's possible that maybe some of the developers and the creators had these characters planned for years and like, oh, finally, we're going to get to make this game, and we're going to get to make it because we're going to have money because we have the Marvel license, so we're going to put these characters in.
That could be a possibility, because these do seem like characters that would be in, like... Anyone remember Thrill Kill, that canceled PS1 fighting game?
Yes.
This feels like these feel like characters that would feel right at home in that kind of game.
Yeah.
Like that bad, edgy, early 2000s, late 90s fighting game, which is what this is, but it has Marvel in it.
Yeah.
So I think for this would be probably best Thomas to answer this one because you actually played this when it came out. How do you feel playing it then versus playing it now?
And I'm actually kind of curious to know, how did you come across this game?
How did I come across it? I genuinely do not remember. Okay, like, I know that sounds bad, but I was so young, I genuinely don't... For all I know, that shit could have, like, spawned in my house, like, from the gates of hell. Like, here you go.
You just
Thanks, buddy.
If the gates of hell are opening up and then the president of EA is, here is your copy.
It's like the beginning of an Indiana Jones movie. You find it in the attic covered in dust.
Yeah. That might have as well been what it is. But I played the shit out of this game back in the day, specifically with my brother, because me and my brother, we both played the shit out of this game. I had a lot more single player time with it than he did, because he was off playing his more mature games, even though he's only 2 years older than me. He
Got to get that edgier time eventually, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I had a lot of single player time with this game. And because my dumbass didn't know you needed a memory card to save, I was a very stupid kid. Which is why I've played the first level of Sonic Heroes like 20 goddamn times. But anyway, because I didn't know you needed a memory card to save this fucking game, I think I beat the whole story mode in like one sitting. Like,
Wow.
Genuinely, I think I beat the whole story mode in one sitting. And I still remember my reaction to the fact that you do not play as any of the Marvel characters, but you play as this random bitch, Paragon, for the last mission of the game. And I'm just like, wait, what? And also, I remember my reaction to the opening cutscene. So let's talk about that. I know you want to...
No, it's fine. That it is an important thing in this experience because it is
Okay.
ooh.
Okay,
This was
yeah,
something that was kind of skimmed, like kind of just it was glossed over in that overview.
Yeah.
Because it's glossed over in the game.
Yeah, it's glossed over in the game. So, okay, you start story mode, and you play as the Thing, discovering these invasions. We'll get to the designs. The Thing looks fucking terrible. We'll get to the designs. And then this cutscene plays where 3 big Marvel characters are just fucking killed off by these aliens. They kill off Captain America, the Punisher, and the Hulk. They kill
Which-
all of them off.
All 3 is very interesting to make that choices because at the time we're talking, they're probably developing in 2005, 2006, getting all the plan out of this. Punisher and Hulk had not well received movies at this point, so at least whatever, maybe they're not super popular. That makes sense. Captain America was still kind of like not quite at the pinnacle, but was a popular character for a decision, for trying to get new fans in and killing one of your faces is a very weird, bizarre decision.
Well, that's saying...
And not only does he get killed off, it happens off screen. We don't even see it happen.
Yeah, literally, like, a blast hits him, the camera, like, goes fuzzy, and then the shield's just there. Like, just there. And the thing is, you say that about Captain America. Back in the early 2000s, mid-90s, you had 3 big Marvel characters. Like, nowadays, it's Iron Man, Thor, Captain America are your big 3. Back then, Captain America was still big, but your big 3 were Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Hulk. And you kill one of them off, and Captain America, and Punisher, who's a very popular character and just had a movie come out. Wasn't well received, but it did still just come out. They just
Considering that
die.
Daredevil has a role in this game, as well as Elektra, and obviously we said that the Raimi-looking Spider-Man, it is a very interesting decision to kill off recent movie characters as well, which almost makes it think like, you would think maybe, I guess for the shock value, but it is very interesting to be like, imagining people who have come in from the movies or have just been watching, hey, I just got out of Ben Affleck's Daredevil. You know what? I want to go check out this game.
Where's my Evanescence music?
Another thing I just realized, this is also 2 years after the Ang Lee Hulk movie.
Yeah.
And you're killing
Yeah,
Hulk.
and you're killing
That's
Hulk.
the thing about it is Hulk. Yeah, it's and so I could see that because those 2 movies weren't particularly well received. So you're like, oh, I can kill them and things like that. And the weird one is just like if you're trying to cater to all forms of fans, it's very odd if a comic book fan coming in and being like, oh, okay, so Cap is dead. Why?
Yeah, and like,
Doesn't he lead these things?
and like, I get that you want to kill off some characters for shock value and all that, but at the same time, like, kill off some fucking nobodies. Like, I know that sounds harsh, but like, just kill off some fucking nobodies.
I wonder if starting with the Thing, and this would have to go back starting with the Thing, because at the moment this was in development, the Fantastic Four movie was also in development, and I believe when this was released it had come out, but probably for most of the development, it hadn't come out. So I wonder if starting with the Thing was maybe a Marvel type of thing, be like, okay, see, we have this new movie coming out.
That might have been
That
the
might be
case.
something, honestly, because it feels like a very odd starting point as well, especially for to bring fans in and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to start with the Thing.
Yeah, part of me does wonder, like, they kill off Captain America, Punisher, Hulk. Part of me wonders if they were originally going to be playable, but time restraints got in the way. So they're like, fuck it, let's kill them off in the cutscene because we got the models and everything.
They could have also probably been difficult to develop for.
That's very fair, especially like Hulk. I could probably see. My main thing is Punisher would probably be a pain in the ass.
Punisher, considering the way the controls and the way this game moves,
Yeah, 'cause-
Punisher would have, and I think also Captain America probably would have been not particularly easy to control. Because look, Spider-Man is. Spoiler alert for what we talk more about. Spider-Man controls like ass in this game.
Well, you say Captain America would be hard to control. He's in the PSP version.
That's true.
Yeah.
What?
In the PSP version, they cut out. I forget the whole roster of this game. You start off with like 6 characters. You unlock more as the game goes on. 6 of 24, by the way. That's not even half the roster.
That's
But
ridiculous.
in the console version, you have Human Torch and Daredevil. In the PSP version, they take those 2 out and replace them with Doctor Doom and Captain America. So
Arguably better characters.
not arguably, they are better characters.
They are just better characters.
Like, don't get me wrong, I love Human Torch, I love Daredevil, but you're taking 2, at the time especially, like kind of minuscule characters against literally the main villain in like every Marvel crossover and the leader of the goddamn Avengers. Who the fuck would you pick?
Yeah.
It seems very much like it's a weird decision for the rosters. Like the rosters feel a little odd. It's not quite a 1-to-1 at the time, but it'd be like, oh yeah, we're gonna play this story mode for this cool new DC fighting game. Oh yeah, we killed Batman in the opening scene.
Yeah, like it would be like if it was like, hey, here's this DC fighting game, and in the opening intro we kill off Wonder Woman, we kill off Batman,
Yeah.
we kill off like Green Lantern or
And
something.
and
Like,
not just like there, but they're not playable unless you have a PSP.
yeah.
Which is such a weird marketing move and everything. Which again, I think the summation of a lot of this game, and we're gonna say a lot of it, is so many weird decisions.
Yeah.
I get that they probably wanted like something to sell the PSP version, but at the same time, put fucking Daredevil and Human Torch on the PSP version.
Mm-hmm.
could-
That would make a lot more sense. That
Yeah.
would have made a lot more sense.
I wonder if it was like a licensing thing.
Again, it's possible that the Human Torch was a decision because of the movie.
That-
the Fantastic Four was
that
coming
might have
out.
been
It's a
the case.
possibility. That's why they decided the console version. Not sure, how much, the movie played any factor in, because that was Marvel's big thing at that point, because you were still a couple years away from Spider-Man 3. You were a year away from X-Men 3. So like,
X-Men 3 came out in 2006.
yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
X-Men 3 was 2006, X-Men and Spider-Man 3 was 2007.
I always like just assume it came out in 2007 because I just assumed the year of bad threes was 2007.
2006, was actually you had X-Men 3 and Superman Returns were the superhero movies of that year, and Pirates of the Caribbean 2 won the summer.
The golden age.
You say woo. I like Superman Returns.
Same.
I like aspects of it. Brandon Routh is a fantastic Superman.
Kate
God,
Bosworth
that movie's
is the-
fucking boring.
Kate Bosworth bogs that movie down at times. Again, I like it because it is a very good homage to the Matt Reeves Superman, and they
You mean
nail
Christopher
that.
Reeve?
Yeah, sorry, Christopher Reeve. I'm thinking of different Reeves.
Matt Reeves Superman. That would be a different goddamn movie.
Yeah, there's gonna be a whole lot of Nirvana playing. And
God, that's a hard sidetrack getting to Matt Reeve. I apologize for that.
So no, but now I'm imagining just Superman flying around. Something in the way.
It's a plane that's in the way. Anyways,
Okay.
getting this train back slightly on the track.
Okay.
Would you
I guess really summing it up,
Oh.
because you started this whole thing with playing then versus
Yeah.
now, and I got so sidetracked. I'm sorry. Playing then, thought it was fun, really kind of cool. It was so much nostalgia for me. So I bought this game again, and I'm like, ooh, let's play it again. I bet it's going to be just as good. I played it for like 2 seconds, the first level with the thing, and I'm like, God, what have I done?
Nostalgia glasses blind
Yeah.
everyone sometimes.
Especially,
Yeah.
it is also in the PS2 era where a lot of games at the time also may have been fine because its peers around it were similar type controls, but when you go back to it as everything has changed and evolved, the problems come in.
Especially just how this game controls.
So my first experience of playing this game was Thomas was playing it and gets to a level where you're Wolverine facing which character was
The Wink.
Wink, facing off against Wink and throwing things and all of the things and having trouble playing it. And I grabbed I'm like, all right, let me have a try at it. And my first attempt, I did not land a hit. I got perfected.
Stomped.
But then
Yeah.
the second time, I was able to, as I was playing, and I was like, oh, I think I have an idea. I have an idea to break this game real quick. And I was able to beat the game by just running around in circles, or beat the level by running around in circles and just throwing her over and over and over again.
Legit, the throw, when you get the throw, it's fucking broken because every character turns into like the fucking, they turn to fucking Jazz from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
And that's kind of my experience with playing this game and sitting down and playing a couple times and going through some of it is that I didn't get to the nostalgia for it because obviously I did not play it. I remember some of the trailers. I'm pretty sure I remember either watching a review. It might have been at the times of G4. It might have been just something that I watched online or on it of it. But the thing about this game, as playing years ago, it is very much trying to be something fresh in a time when a lot of fresh things did not work.
Yeah.
And that mid-2000s PS2 games and early PS3 games, there are a lot of, and especially like you just look at the Wii as a whole, as a system, there's a lot of things that were tried in those, that really did not fail. Now a lot of them harkened into good things. This thing did not necessarily, because the studio did not get another crack at Marvel Imperfects 2.
No.
And so that's kind of my feeling when playing it is, well, this is a whole lot of I see what they're trying to do here. Woof. But I do love breaking games. I do love playing bad games and finding the one thing I can spam over and over and over again to break it. That is one of my favorite things to be able to do, especially in this era of games.
It could. You brought up that a lot of games are trying stuff like this. For some reason, maybe it's because I watched a video on this recently. You know what game this reminds me of that I'm sure both of you have heard gangbusters about? Final Fight Streetwise.
Yes.
Because it's, Mason's just shaking his head.
No, it does not ring a bell.
Okay, let's put it this way. You know Final Fight, like the old 2D beat 'em up series?
Vaguely. Is that?
Okay, well, you know it exists.
Yeah, that's a game that Terry and Smash is from, right?
No, that's King of
King of
Fighters,
Fighters.
Fatal
King of Fire-
Fury.
Okay, something. That's
Yeah,
something different.
you know what it is. It's the beat 'em up.
It's
thing.
one of those old beat 'em up type
Yeah,
games.
like
I think I can kind of.
like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the
or
game.
like
but-
or like Double Dragon.
Yeah.
like Double Dragon is a better comparison. Okay, yeah, they tried to do that. They made it a 3D beat 'em up. Ooh, and it's so like bad, edgy kind of thing. Legit, in the second half of the game, you start like fighting Resident Evil zombies for some reason.
Huh.
So yeah,
And
yeah,
it's-
that
and
definitely,
I was gonna say,
this game
it
definitely has
It
that.
definitely gives off that vibe because it's trying so hard to be like that kind of edgy alternative to Marvel. No one wears fucking costumes; they just wear their goddamn jeans.
Which is so much of that era of comic book films, because we're not even, Batman Begins has not even released at this point.
Yeah.
Or maybe when it was around, it said it was
It
around
was-
the time
if
when
it
Batman
had
Begins.
released, it would have
So
been
that
definitely
changed, but it said it's all that consistent response of, oh God, Batman and Robin came out, and comic books can never be cheesy. They can never be funny. They can never be goofy. They have to be serious. And this is kind of that era of video games when they try to be serious, which meant we need to have some rock music and we need to have some edgier costumes.
Look, it says something when the most like comic accurate costumes that come out of this time was Fantastic Goddamn 4.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Mason, what are your thoughts on the game?
So, I actually had kind of a different starting point than both of you. Actually, I never actually got into the story mode. I did a little bit because when Thomas had you had your card in it, it did let me replay the final level, so I did do that. But that was like my only story mode experience. I mostly just did a lot of computer fights. with all the characters unlocked, I would just do random versus battles, and what it came off to me was like the core of this game, like the very basics of it, the fighting and the environments and all that are pretty good, and I actually ended up having a lot of fun with it. It's just everything else around it that kind of brings, because like you brought up like weird decisions in this game, and that's what it feels like. It feels like a really good core surrounded by bad ideas. Like there are constant camera angle shifts.
Oh god!
Like
yeah.
every time you land a huge punch or something explodes, the camera immediately changes, and it's like, why? It just slows the game down.
I was gonna say, me and Mason were playing around just before starting this, just to like get our hands on. Legit, every time he would land like a kick as Spider-Man, I would go flying, and the camera would just show things ass flying through the air, and I'm like, okay.
It's why being able to just running around like a chicken with its head cut off was my strategy for a lot of this game, because especially against the computer, just don't worry about the camera, just try to run around and dodge.
Yeah, especially because you were playing as Wolverine, who I did not think had his regenerating.
It had
health.
healing
He
powers.
did. He did.
It's such a broken system in that aspect.
That's the problem with Wolverine, like any fighting game, is like, how do we put his regenerating health in there? You don't.
You don't.
You just don't.
Makes me think of in bad PS2 fighting games, Dragon Ball Z Budokai. In the first one, you could equip your character with an automatic heal if you had it, like to heal you all the way. And it was always hilarious if the other person decided, because you would decide if you wanted a bunch of moves or if you wanted your heal. And so you could literally just have no moves, but you're healing yourself.
So Goku can't do his Kamehameha.
Exactly,
But he can
'cause he-
survive getting stabbed in the fucking chest.
Pretty much. But yeah, that sort of thing is, deciding that is a cool strategic element. This doesn't have that. It's just like, oh, the character is broken.
Yeah, which is...
But with what Mace is talking about, playing more of the computer multiplayer modes on it, at least the important kind of the question of it is, we've already trashed a lot of the single player mode, but this game is fun in the multiplayer mode. Not in a, oh my gosh, this is a great game, I'm so excited to be playing this game. It's just a fun game to sit around and play with in multiplayer mode. That's definitely something I feel like they got right in this game, even if it's probably an unintentional got right.
This is... Mason can't drink, so this doesn't necessarily apply to you, but this is a good game to have, like, you're tossing some beers back, you're like, in the same way you're tossing beers back, and you're like, let's watch a shitty action movie or a shitty horror movie. This is a game you toss a few beers back, and it's like, let's put this shitty game and just have a blast.
It's the Jaws 4 of video games.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, you're right, because it's... I mean, like I said, me and Mason were playing it. We were having a blast, not because the game was good, but because it was just so fucking dumb.
Like there was one moment that I will always remember from this game is there's a lot of like environmental interaction in this game, which also doesn't work because you can accidentally punch a taxi cab and get blown into the next county.
Yeah.
But I believe I was Iron Man, you were Magneto.
Yes,
I grabbed a taxi cab, threw it at Magneto, who immediately caught it, threw it back at me, and it exploded.
Which
And
was so fucking...
It was just so funny for some reason.
Which it was because, again, I was playing as Magneto, so I might be biased, but, like, he threw the taxi cab, Magneto just caught it with, like, 2 fingers and went, lol, no, and just tossed it the fuck back.
That was at a point where I didn't know that you could catch flying
There are a lot of
objects.
cool elements in it that I think in a better game probably would have been, a lot of things that would have actually not just been like fun, bad, but like actual like, oh my gosh, this game had something behind it.
3D fighting game with picking up objects. A better version of that game does exist. It's just expensive as fuck. It's called Power Stone.
That's kind of...
No, I get what you're saying.
The element of at this time is a lot of games were trying to merge genres, and it's not uncommon. That's happened a lot over decades. It still is happening. The thing that I don't think any studio has figured out at this point is how to merge a fighting game with another genre.
Yeah.
The closest is like Soul Calibur, when you get like those RPG elements.
There are some of those, and a lot of fighting games have the RPG elements that
Oh.
are on it, but like,
Again, you were talking about Dragon Ball Z Budokai. Kind of similar to that.
It's
Again,
true.
it doesn't work in Budokai, but
or like the Dragon Ball Xenoverses, for example, that are more or less MMO elements with a fighting game. Tekken, which one did we determine had the rail
okay,
fighting game?
I think it was 4.
I think Tekken 4 has the rail fighting game that's like that. It feels like you're supposed to have a rail gun to be shooting at the for punches.
But you're just punch. Yeah, you haven't played
Oh,
that. I gotta bring it. I gotta bring it back.
But it's
so you
about the
can-
same time. That would have been 2003, 2004 range.
I gotta bring it back so you can play as your husbando Steve and beat the shit out of Chief Security Guard Justice.
It is. But at the time, a lot of studios were trying it, and I think I think my overarching, really my thought on this game, as far as the experience there is that this game should have been developed as a party game idea, as a Smash Bros, not a clone, but as that sort of sit down fun, instead of trying to make this weird, gritty, mid 2000s.
Genuinely, yeah.
Action movie game. If they had made it more of a party fun, and even if the story was around it, I think the game actually would have been received a lot better, because those elements are there. But because it is so intent on trying to become a weird third-person fighting beat-em-up game, it loses some of, especially the story mode, it loses a lot of the fun from it.
And I think part of that does have to do with like the time that it came out, because this was what, it was 2005. You said, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of a bad time for fighting games in general. Like
Yeah.
this was during the
Yeah.
dark age of Mortal Kombat.
Tekken and Soul Calibur were good.
I was gonna say Tekken and Soul
You had
Calibur were
Namco
good.
making good fighting games, and then you had a lot of woof.
Because this was Mortal Kombat's like the PS2 trilogy of Mortal Kombat. I forget which one had just come out. I think it might have been Deadly Alliance.
I think it was.
Oh dear.
We're not quite yet.
Yeah.
It still hadn't.
'Cause-
Mortal Kombat vs. DC hadn't come out yet.
Oh Christ! No, because
Yeah.
Armageddon came out before Mortal Kombat vs. DC, and Armageddon's fucking ass.
It was just a bad, just a not, because the translation from a 2D fighting game into 2D fighting games with 3D graphics wasn't smooth. It was not smooth.
even yeah, like I said, Mortal Kombat 4. I haven't played 4. I've heard it's like janky fun, but that's about it.
That's kind of with a
and
lot of it is we've been playing a lot of fighting games over the last month plus of a lot of it, and a lot of the PS1, PS2 era games, and the kind of the consistent thing is like ones that maintained 2D elements and stuck with kind of the 2D format held up and play well. The ones that tried to go full 3D in this era really struggle.
Yeah.
I think like I think another solid example is like the Street Fighter EX series.
Oof. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because that was Street Fighter's attempt to do 3D, and well, I got it's clunky. Let's put it this way: in every Street Fighter game, you do like, I forget the exact motion, but it's like back something, kick, and Ryu and Ken do their Tatsumaki Senpu Kyaku, the Hurricane Kick. They do that fucking spinny shit.
You almost had it.
You had it. We
Yeah.
were
An attempt was made.
You were pulling for me, and I failed. In this game, you have to press the kick button multiple times to do it. And just that alone is so clunky. You have to charge the Hadouken and shit. And it's like, just putting it into 3D. And again, this isn't just Street Fighter. This is Mortal Kombat, where they added weapons for some godforsaken reason. This is legit the only... Which is weird, because Capcom was doing good 3D fighting games with like Rival Schools and Power Stone. But so many games that tried to make the transition to 3D just bombed.
And then on top of it, at the same time, you had a lot of games trying to do the beat 'em up, trying to bring that to
Yes.
3D, which still to this day hasn't worked because part of the fun of the beat 'em up is the 2D layers and all those things and the way it's set up. And when you put it in 3 dimensions, you lose something in a lot of ways. Hence, that's where Dragon Ball Z Sagas comes in.
It says something when one of the best 3D beat 'em ups of the PS2 era is the fucking Minority Report game.
It's true, and that says something.
I know, it's astonishing.
Yeah.
Overall, though, well, I would say overall my experience of this game is honestly mostly positive, despite all of these. Like, I had a lot of fun playing this game. I don't know what you guys would say for your experience, but I would put a pretty decent, hey, this is a pretty fun game despite its flaws.
I mean, yeah, I think it's
Conflictions, I
very
feel.
complicated.
Yeah.
Because like I would in a heartbeat I would play a game that did what that game did, but better.
Mm-hmm.
I just I can't see myself going back to Nemesis as much as I
That's fair.
had fun with it. It's like
I mean, that means Mason's perfectly leading into our 2 main questions that we will ask every single podcast. Our 2 major questions. And he's leading perfectly into that there. How does this game hold up? I think that is an important question to always ask in a game because it's not necessarily, games don't always age well. And you can have fun in a game that hasn't aged well. You can also break a game that hasn't aged well because of modern things.
This is very
You
true.
know, and I think, honestly, this game does not hold up particularly well. Like, I think that's one of the things. Like, when you look at it, it can be playable, and a lot of it, but it is definitely a product of its era.
I think, okay, because, like, I both adore this and hate this about the game. It is so drenched in mid to late early 2000s bullshit. Like,
All it needed was like some riff off of like Linkin Park at the opening.
no, legit, like Paragon's looking out over Niles Van Thornton's corpse, and it's like, so give me reason.
That's literally, and, it's missing that, the Daredevil, Punisher,
Yeah.
2000 soundtrack, and this game's soundtrack is ass.
Dude, legit, a fighting game, like, again, yeah. Notice I talk a shit ton about fighting games, and if that annoys you, sorry.
This may not be the podcast for you.
Yeah.
Or it might be. Keep listening. Thank you.
Yeah, keep listening. Please don't click off. God. Like, fighting games have, so many of them are just built on their soundtrack. Like, their fighting mechanics too, but like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has the want to take you for a ride in the character select. Street Fighter 3 straight up has like raps for all the actions of the game, and they're really well written.
The thing for an EA licensed game at the time, which almost all EA licensed games at the time, you think about any EA games, especially in the 2000s, like, damn, they had a good soundtrack. Damn, they had a good soundtrack.
Yeah,
like EA had all the money and all the licensing at the time. This game could have easily had a huge, big, awesome soundtrack.
Yeah, especially like, I mean, we were talking about fighting games, Def Jam, that had so many rappers, but even the Bond games, like they had not only the Bond soundtrack, they straight up made songs for those games. Everything or Nothing, top tier Bond song, like holy shit. And yeah, EA has that ability, they just didn't for this game.
yeah.
I straight up, can you guys remember a single song?
I didn't even find myself humming anything afterwards, and I hum even some of the worst tracks of video games because there's no earworms whatsoever in this
There's only one little musical motif that I remember, and it's the thing that plays after like a fighting match, and it's because I played so many computer rounds that dun, 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 dun,
No,
dun,
that
dun, dun, dun.
that is the one piece of music that has like been in my head since I played
That's
this
Because
game.
it's the only song that plays when you.
But you
it's-
also could have
it's-
literally just said, yeah, this was an insert any fighting game, and it's like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It could have
Like-
been in any moment in Nemesis. It could have been in any moment in any fighting game.
Because legit, that is the only fucking song that plays throughout most of this game.
It's true.
Like, throughout the fighting matches, it's dun da da dun da da dun. Okay, you know Sonic Unleashed's ba-da, ba-da, ba-da-da-da-da. That is this game, but there is no relief from it. At least
Yeah.
Sonic Unleashed has that sexy jazz to go back to. This has nothing.
This has-
It feels like, and I wonder where I I don't know. I didn't look up the composer. I didn't look how much he's done or they post this. But like one of the things is like it feels like the soundtrack was an afterthought, and they're like, hey, you play music, make me a soundtrack.
You were in high school band.
Like
Dude.
that's what it feels like. It's like somebody just sat at a computer and produced some soundtracks quickly.
Yeah, and another thing, because we talked about the soundtrack's fucking horrible. Another thing that's horrible and is so drenched in the 2000s, let's talk about the designs in this game. Oh my god.
I feel like they sat in a meeting. They were like, "All right, we need to think of like a general design." And then one of them went, "I'm a big fan of the color green.
It's so green.
There's so much green."
Even the like we were
it's-
while we're playing looking at the thing and his glossy color, and it's a green glossy look over him. Like
straight up, these motherfuckers, like, they developed this game in the Matrix. Like, there's that much green.
I mean, I guess this is years after the Matrix too, so it's a very weird like time frame for that. Like, green was not like I could see this in like a lot of like the late '90s kind of like that, early.
Yeah.
But this seems like you would think, especially considering the Raimi Spider-Man was a thing.
And that was
you know,
so colorful. The
you know,
Raimi Spider-Mans
yeah.
are so colorful.
as weird as they are sometimes colored, Daredevil, Elektra, and Hulk all have very interesting color designs. I don't necessarily think they're good in some of them, but they have interesting designs on it. And
Yeah.
then to have like at this point in time where Marvel is kind of trying to find its footing, how it's going to be as a cultural icon. We're 2 years away from Iron Man, where it would start to become that. Trying to find it is so weird that this game just is bland, and I think that's what a lot of it. Why it doesn't hold up is in a lot of ways is because of the weird decisions. But it's just so many of the decisions are just, well, it's Marvel, it'll work.
And that's exactly it. Like, again, you say it's Marvel. Some of these designs, like, even for Marvel, like, they fucked them up. The Thing has ears. He should never have ears.
I think that is
and
a perfect way to sum up this game. Is it's Marvel, it'll work.
It's like we have the
Yeah.
license, they'll buy it. We have the license, so they'll buy it. And I think it almost feels like they were like, and we'll get a second game. Maybe we won't do it all right here, but we're gonna get a second game, and that's where we're gonna play.
And this game did not sell well.
Like, weirdly in this podcast, I have mentioned Dragon Ball games a lot, but it's this era about that time. But Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku for the Game Boy Advance is a really bad game. But the studio got a second and a third, and the second game is one of the greatest Game Boy games that has ever come out. Like, it is just an incredibly well-crafted action RPG. The first one's not. And the studio, they were trying things, and they failed a lot. And I wonder if sometimes as they were developing, they were like, as they were trying different things, they're like, we'll iron this out when we get more games, because we have the Marvel license. And Marvel's like, nah, we don't want that.
We'll get second game. We'll get a second game, right? Yeah, in your dreams, buddy. We're gonna go
Yeah.
make Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah. So going back to the question, does it hold up? No.
Yeah,
It's a
and
big
that's kind
no.
of the feeling across the board. And then, so from that, we have our second major question that I think we ask everything. Do you think this game deserves a reimagining or a remake in a more modern setting?
Genuinely, we've all said it. I think specifically Shawn has said it a bunch. This game has ideas that really could work. It has a fun. Mason said this as well, or I think you were.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Someone had said that it has decent main mechanics. It has that, like, number 475 on the list of games that have rage as a mechanic. It has that. It has, honestly, even though the lineup isn't great, it has a pretty decent lineup of characters. It has the Thing, it has Spider-Man, it has Wolverine, Elektra, Daredevil, Human Torch, the Imperfects. It says something when they're the main focus of the game, arguably, and we have barely talked about them. They're that
bland. There's not a single character that's worth thinking about in the Imperfects, and that's the sad part of a lot of it, and that's why a reimagining, where you maybe reimagined you don't even have to change the names, they can still be the dumb names, just reimagining to a more interesting characters, giving them better voice acting, making the mechanics of the game more fun. I think
they needed to focus on one or the other. Either make a fun fighting game or make a fun 3D beat 'em up. Trying to combine both just...
There's a game that came out around this time, And while playing it, I couldn't help but thinking a lot of it because it's a better game despite not being, the same type. It's called Monsters Inc. Dodgeball.
What?
And it was and you just run around. Basically, you run around in Monsters Inc. with all the characters, and you play dodgeball. But it's like you're in the square room and you're collecting items and you're throwing dodgeballs. The camera doesn't move a ton. It has very similar mechanics, and it was a lot of fun. I'm not saying this game needed to fully embrace those things, but if they had taken a lot of those mechanics and embraced more of the party mode, and I think that's legitimately, if they were to ever reimagine something like this, embrace just the party mode, you could still have a fun, weird, even a gritty storyline. It'd be very funny, and then like this weird party mode, but if the map was more of a video game, more of I'm going to pick items up and collect items, and that's how I get power-ups, and that's how I use my attacks, and that's how I do things.
Yeah,
because I like more of the beat-em-up elements than I do the fighting game elements in this game.
Again, make it like sort of a 3D Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Like, maybe have these funny items like Aunt May's wheat cakes for health, or Wolverine can drink a beer and he gets rage or whatever.
There's fun things you can do that have that really embrace the fun. I think while I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these games, the arena type games that have come out and the 3 things like Fortnite and all those sort of things, the characters are always having fun and doing things. That is an element of actually you could embrace in this game that would be fun if they were saying fun lines with good voice acting over them.
Yeah.
I think. There is legitimately at this core a really fun game that gets bogged down by 2000s garbage.
You brought up Fortnite. I'm just imagining Spider-Man flinging a taxi into Magneto, and as his crumpled corpses laying there, Spider-Man just fucking flosses.
I
over
would
him.
silly things imagine you're playing Wolverine just lights a cigar right there. Have fun with this game because this game is devoid of a soul in the end of it, and that's the thing that despite all the things that I really like about it and can sit down and legitimately laugh and have fun with people on it, if it had a purpose and a soul behind it, out there. And that's why I would really love a reimagining of this idea. But if the mechanics were fun, you could still have a dark story where characters are getting killed and just make the game more fun.
That's really what Nemesis needed. Was a studio that knew what it was doing. Get a studio that knows what it's doing, a slightly bigger budget. Doesn't even have to be huge. Just slightly bigger. And I also think, this game was definitely a victim of the hardware. So if you got it on hardware that could actually do what it was trying to do, and not just promise to do the things and then not actually do them.
Because again, we talk about it, the characters are hideous, the environments are so green, so bland, and again, just add some color. That's all. That's not all you need, obviously, but add some color. Genuinely, all right. Here's a great way to fix this game: tighten up the mechanics, add some color, make the story mode very kind of light, and make it a downloadable. Make it a downloadable game. Make it sort of a party game. You don't even have to charge full price for it. Just make it $30.
Look at the success of something silly like Fall Guys has had. And again, I'm not saying that's the type of mechanics I want, but party games have an audience for it. And that's kind of the thing that I said. If you got a license like this, and were able to have just a lot of fun with it, I really think there's something here to it because they could, and I think the studio had the right idea. They could have just made another generic fighting game. I know Thomas and I have talked off air about not really caring too much for Injustice overall, a lot of the things like it. But at bare minimum, Injustice was just Mortal Kombat with DC characters. They could have done something like that, and it honestly probably at the time would have been more well received, probably considered a better game. But I think with this idea and what they have there, they actually have a really cool core. Whether it was an intentional core or unintentionally, this is what they just ended up with, I don't know. But there is something legitimately there that could have been special.
What I could definitely see, you brought up Smash Broing it a little bit, making it more like Smash Brothers. We've seen a bit of an influx in Smash clones recently. Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl. What's the Warner Brothers one?
Multiverses.
I could definitely see Marvel doing
And
something like this.
there were a bunch of Smash Bros. Clones even at the time.
I mean, yeah, 'cause,
that
like-
weren't, a lot of them weren't good. Like, and that's the thing.
Yeah, because this was back. I mean, this was a few years before, but this was when TMNT Smash Up came out. This was, I think One Piece had a
They
Smash
did
Brothers
have
clone.
it was not good. One Piece didn't get a good game for another decade almost.
One Piece didn't get a good game until like Pirate Warriors.
Yeah.
And even then, that's literally just Dynasty Warriors.
I know, but it's fun.
That's all that matters in the end.
I think just like, you know, to kind of my final sum up on this game, and I'll then let each of you kind of have your on it, is that this is this is an attempt, and I think I applaud trying something. The problem is that they weren't willing to go fully bold enough to actually make a dent or make it anything, and that is probably in the end why Marvel moved on to something that was more familiar, considering to going to Ultimate Alliance because of the success of the X-Men games and being like, no, we don't want this, we got something right here. And then obviously the MCU came out and they're like, yeah, we don't want any other games besides this.
We don't want games anymore.
Exactly.
Just look at the gap between Ultimate Alliance 2 and 3. Jesus Christ on a bike.
But yeah, my final thought is just, you know, I would love to see more, and it's a game that needs more. I will let you guys each have your, you know, what you final thoughts on your game, the game here. And
Well, actually, something I wanted to bring up before the final thoughts. Going back to the sort of the development thing on it, I was looking at this at Marvel Nemesis on IMDb, kind of looking at the actors on. Now there's a lot of blank profiles, a lot of blank pictures, but the biggest one here is the voice of Spider-Man is a man by the name of Alistair Abel. Now he's had a couple of
I know that name.
big parts.
I
He
do
was
not,
Officer
so-
Goodman in Freddy vs. Jason. He was in Sausage Party. That's neither here nor there. But his arguably
Was he
his
the Jewish bagel?
no, he
Oh,
was
I know that.
mariachi
That was
salsa. But arguably his biggest voice role was Trunks in Dragon Ball Z.
What the fuck?
Which thing did he?
Which dub?
I don't.
Does it say?
It doesn't say. I assume English dub.
That's awesome, honestly.
was
That's really interesting.
That was his biggest thing. Was that.
I like that basically the way that Mason can sum up this game is like, hey, I went onto IMDb and I found some things. And you know what? If that doesn't sum up this game perfectly,
Yeah, he can also sum it up with there's a lot of blank profiles.
There are a lot of blank
I'm
profiles
just-
in here.
I'm just imagining just imagining you're playing the game and the thing comes up like it's clobbering time, and Spider-Man just comes up and is like, "What the fuck's a famous Trunks line? God damn it! I need to watch more Dragon Ball Z." The only one
He
I
just-
can think of is DBZ
he
Abridged.
just
Get
cuts
out
him
of,
down. He just cuts him down the middle like Frieza.
I was gonna say because the only one I could think of is DBZ Abridged. Get out of my fucking timeline.
It's a good line.
Yeah, I was gonna say I need to watch more Dragon Ball Z.
I think Mason wins the final opinion there. Legitimately.
No,
great on
legit. Legit. I haven't even gotten yet.
Another-
I'm not topping that.
Another weird connection is that there's another person in here. What's his name? Michael Dobson. He plays the guy, the Lex Luthor type character.
Niles Van Thorne.
He's also in Sausage Party. Like,
So apparently they went and did Sausage Party on it.
apparently there's a Marvel Nemesis to Sausage Party pipeline.
Look, you know, get that bank.
Yeah, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. This is 2 degrees of Marvel Nemesis.
But I mean, going back to summing up this game is that there was a lot of just wrong place at the wrong time happening with this game.
There really was.
I mean, if it was any other studio, any other console, any other era, it could have been a perfectly fine to maybe even a great game. But it was a victim of hardware limitations, a studio that didn't have enough experience, and a tiny budget.
I think what can sum up this game. We've had a lot of this can sum up the game best, but the fact that Vampire: The Masquerade Redemption, the game before this one, is their best received game says a lot. And even if you play Vampire: The Masquerade Redemption, that shit is clunky as fuck because it's a early 2000s PC only RPG. So
So yeah, gonna be real clunky.
yeah, and I guess to sum up my final thoughts is there are definitely things that you could do with this game. There are definitely ways to make it fun. Again, I say go either full fighting game, even if you do 3D like Power Stone or whatever, and make it sort of another 3D Smash Brothers, because God forbid Capcom's never going to do anything with Power Stone again.
Unfortunately.
Maybe a little bitter there.
What? I'm not bitter at all. Yeah, like either go full 3D Smash Brothers or go full 3D beat 'em up. Again, you can do something with the Imperfects because there are neat character designs. Again, good old Thunder Thighs, but like
I do like basically we've done this whole discussion, and the Imperfects just is an afterthought in this game. And they're an afterthought in their own game, and
they're so fucking boring.
Yeah.
Legit, I cannot. I think one of their names is literally like Toxic.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, Toxic. Just Toxic. And I'm like, fucking hell, something else. I can remember. This is going to be really pathetic if I can remember all the Imperfects. I'm going to try. The Wink, Paragon, Solar, Brigade, Toxic, Johnny Ohm. Is that it?
I feel like
Might be. It's not that.
The
many.
Wink. Did I say her already?
you said you started with Wink.
Fault Zone.
Fault Zone. I forgot.
Oh yeah.
Of course,
Fault-
I forgot about Fault Zone.
Who could forget Fault Zone?
Yeah, who could forget Fault Zone? By the way, something we didn't talk about in this game, you are forced to play as the Imperfects in the story mode.
Yeah.
And you have to basically kill a Marvel character. Like, you have to choose which Marvel character to kill.
Fault Zone, Hazmat, Solera, Wink, Paragon,
Hazmat. It's,
And
Brigade.
it was Solera.
yeah,
I think you
Solar.
said-
Solar.
So yeah.
Yeah,
and
Solar.
Brigade.
Brigade, yeah, because he's the Frankenstein.
Like
motherfucker.
they're just an afterthought in their own game.
Because what's weird is that there are moments where you do have to play as them
Mhm.
and you have to fight the Marvel characters. What's weird is that the fights say they're to the death. They're not. Like, my favorite one is The Thing. You play as Fault Zone, Thunder Thighs fighting him. And this straight up, it says, a duel to the death on the bridge of New York. The Thing will not walk away. You play as Fault Zone, you kill him. Then he shows up later in the story fighting Human Torch while possessed by the Thing. And it's like, so you didn't fucking kill him. So what's the goddamn point of calling it a battle to the death?
Making tough decisions this game does not do.
It really doesn't.
That's really a good. That's another thing that could sum it up.
Yeah, it doesn't make these tough decisions.
Are we just gonna say we sum up this game on it? But
Yeah, we saw with this game on. It had decisions. It didn't make them.
so that's Marvel the Imperfects.
Marvel Nemesis, Rise of the Imperfects.
Yeah, my set. You know what? I wanted to leave a few names out because you know this game leaves a lot of things out. Marvel
Such as
Nemesis,
effort.
Rise of the Imperfects. So
Probably the most anybody is ever going to talk about this game ever.
Legit, probably. I think I found...
we
I
found the
think
niche on the internet. We're going to talk about things that nobody else wants to talk about or listen to. So thank you all for listening here. We will.
Do we want to go ahead and tease what the next one will be?
I think we'll. Yeah, we'll let Mason give a tease.
I'm very excited for what's coming up next because it is one of the best copies of a game that already got bundled with the Wii. Anyways, so why would you want to buy another one? Go Vacation.
So get ready for that.
Yeah, I can't wait to waggle till my arms fall off. Oh, God. When did that game come out? Was it 2007?
Something like in the mid 2000s.
Oh, Jesus.
The,
That means
the
it's gonna
height of the Wii.
That's gonna be like prime waggle wee, son of a bitch.
So rate and review this podcast. I don't know where it's all going to be on, but I know it's going to be on Apple Podcast. Rate and review it. Give us 5 stars so we can keep talking and waggling. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bah.